Hey guys, welcome back to the first episode of the build-bytes Deco series. In this series, I explain my thought process for building exteriors and interiors. The builds used in this video and future ones originate from the original build-bytes series on YouTube Shorts and TikTok. So if you'd like to see my interpretation of the interior of another build, let me know in the comments. Also, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing. I'm hoping to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year and your support would mean a lot. One more thing, if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to see built in future build-bytes episodes, please do not hesitate to let me know in the comments. Alright, that is enough introduction, let's hop right into the video. While this video mainly focuses on the interior of the building, I also wanted to give the exterior some love by creating a small courtyard with access to the river by boat. First, I started out with a rough build of the area that I wanted to work with. I thought that bamboo would still be the most appropriate as I'm still trying to stick to the yellow theme of the build while also using a natural block. I tried going for a more organic shape at first, but then I squared out the design as I thought it would be more appropriate considering the building's geometry. I also added borders and planters to the nearby trees to hide the back portions of the building. I then textured the floor using beehives, which I thought was a really nice addition. I then followed this with some details of the courtyard, such as a planter with some trees and some seating. This section was perhaps the most time-consuming part of the exterior. I wanted to create a balcony but also wanted to make it clear where the courtyard ended. After dozens of iterations, I settled on the simplest one. I'll spare you the 30 minutes of time-lapse by speeding this up even more. The design I finally landed on is a perfect example where simpler can sometimes create a better build. I also extended the courtyard a bit forward to create space for the dock section. This section has a few stairs leading down to a small dock. I also added a planter here to cover up the empty space a bit. I then finished up the courtyard by adding a few more benches and extending the original azalea planters. I also polished up the area by extending the flooring below the planters. I wasn't a big fan of the gravel I added initially, but I won't be replacing it all around the build. Well, this concludes the exterior of the building. Now let's head inside and see what we can do there. I first tackled the interior by working on the elevator shafts. While vanilla Minecraft doesn't have elevators, I just think it's a good solution considering how tall the ceilings are in this build. I started out with two colors for the elevators, but after a few iterations I added glass and banners and made it entirely yellow. I also added a few bamboo trapdoors for details and to break up the solid color of the walls. I also think that the ochre frog lights really fit into the honey aesthetic, which I absolutely love. Let's just say I pretty much used them everywhere I could. After I finished the one elevator, I used World Edit to copy and paste it to the other side. This was mostly just to save time seeing as this elevator design took me about 20 minutes to mock up. I then worked on the actual lobby. For this, I made some chairs out of jungle planks and then added a carpet. This design was not final and I will change it at some later point. For lighting, I incorporated end rods as lamps and also added them to the ceiling later on. For the seating areas, I wanted to break up the floor plan a bit, so I added a divider between the two sides for some added privacy. I then balanced this on the other side but varied the shape to make it more interesting. For the ceiling area, I wanted to add a chandelier, but it looked too crowded, so I cleaned up the ceiling and added end rods. After a few iterations, I settled on what you see now. To further clean up the ceiling, I added a large garden by the window, which I think looks amazing with the shaders. I then continued to the receptionist area. I wanted to add a logo on the inside, so I experimented with a few designs and decided to go with the ochre lamp design. I followed this up by adding the receptionist table, which is just a large straight log with some added chairs. At this point, I decided to improve the carpet by going for a more abstract design for the logo. For the lobby chairs in this area, I wanted to go with a more fancy and cozy design, so I worked with bookshelves and lighting to make it seem more proper, if that makes sense. I also added some modern tables for added detail. I finished this section off by adding some massive planters on either side of the lobby and also adding some more detail to the receptionist area. The ceiling at this point was looking very empty, so I figured I would revisit my idea of a chandelier and add it here. I was really satisfied with how nice and yet simple this chandelier design looks in this lobby. With that done, this concludes the lobby portion. Let's head up to finish the garden levels of this build. The last 3 levels of this build will consist of gardens with many beehives, flowers, and foliage. I first started by filling in the floor with grass. I then did some work on the elevators, bringing in the design from the lobby up to the garden floor. It's the same design, except I also decided to add a row of banners to cover up the lights all the way down to the lobby. To keep the design somewhat consistent with the lower floor, I added a tiered garden above the elevator, which not only looks nice, but also helps blend in the elevator with the rest of the floor. I also added some lighting to help with the darkness in the place. I then began work on the beehives. For the first floor, I wanted to create more of a workshop. Essentially, I imagined that this would be the spot where the nests are made and assembled before they're brought up to the upper floors. With this in mind, I added a few tables with some clutter and lighting, of course. I then decided to start working on the artificial biome. It's just supposed to be a more natural version of everything that follows. The glass floor in this room sits directly above the lobby, so if you were to find yourself in the lobby, you can look up the water into this room. The place is fitted with grass, dirt, stone, and a few plants to be a more realistic home for the bees. I also added a floating path to be able to access the room. Going back to the main floor, I worked on adding a bit more detail to the elevators. I personally really like the use of hanging signs in this section. After this, I brought some designs from the lobby up here with the oversized wall planners. These were mainly used to fill in the walls as they were looking a bit empty. I then added a few more beehives to the walls just so it looked a bit more busy. To finish up the floor, I added some foliage on the ceiling, seeing as this place is supposed to be mostly taken over by plants. I also added some spore flowers for some added details. For the next floor, I added a bit of height with grass blocks. This was mostly to cover up the building pillars. I then went even crazier with the plants to further fill in the space on this floor. Once again, I added oversized wall planters to the sides along with some extra bee nests. This floor was also looking particularly dark, so I decided to add some lighting behind the hanging vines on the ceiling. I then thought it would be a good idea to add more nests to the other wall to further fill up the space. Moving on to the next floor, I mainly followed the same formula as the floor below it with some mild variances. I also decided to add one more lighting option thanks to this floor, which was lanterns. I just think it adds a great wilderness touch to the inside. I go back through the rest of the floors adding lanterns and a few trapdoors. And this concludes the garden levels. If you guys made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for the support, and please don't forget to like this video. Also, please don't forget to help me reach my 1,000 subscriber goal by the end of the year. It would mean the world to me. Anyways, I think it's time for a showcase, but before that, thank you so much for watching and I hope you have an amazing day.